Yeah, you're a podcast expert, sir.
So I don't know. Is
I
it
want
getting
like your David. I want you like headphones and like a microphone.
I hate that.
Me too.
So unnatural.
Welcome to Teague Talks. I'm your host, Teague Hunter. Today we're sitting down with David Kong, former CEO of Best Western, current founder of DEI Advisors. We're going to hear from David what it was like growing up in Hong Kong, his journey through hospitality, and how he's now giving back to the industry. David, thank you for joining me today. This is going to be fun.
Well, thank you. I appreciate having me.
So I listen. I know we've been friends a long time. You've been in this industry a long time. You're one of our icons, truly. Now you're doing some fun stuff, so we want to get into that too. But other than thanks for joining me and making me twist your arm to come do this, but I think it's fun. I think your story is one of the best ones, and that's what we do here, right? We learn the stories. So I need to know. I want to know about David Kong, a young David Kong growing up in Hong Kong, and what was life like? Oh, by the way, how'd you get to the States and then to Best Western? But give me a visual of a young David growing up.
All right.
And what did mom and dad do? What were they into? And how did that influence your life? That's all what I want to know.
All right.
I go.
Got to take you back to the early 1940s. As you
Ooh.
know, communism was taken over China, and my parents fled Shanghai, where they were born and raised, and fled to Hong Kong. And there they have four boys. And my mom was the vice principal of a very famous elementary school. My dad made a modest living being a cutlery shop manager. And growing up, I was very fortunate. I went to a Jesuit high school and I got a very, very good education. But my parents' only goal in life was to work hard, save money, and send all their kids abroad to further their education so they could have a better life than them. And it's really noble that they felt that way. And they worked very hard. My dad worked 6.5 days a week, and I hardly saw him when I was growing up, but he was always very loving and very giving. So I came to this country with
Wait, what?
nothing.
No, hang on. We're not living in Hong Kong. Hong Kong yet. What kid were you? And the right, you have four siblings. What number
I
were you?
was the second.
Second.
Yeah.
Boy, girl, girl, girl. What?
Oh,
Talk to
there's
me.
all boys. All
All boys.
boys. God bless my mom. She's a
Yeah,
saint.
right. Right. So what was life like growing up? I mean, you're like typically wrestling with your brothers, or what did you guys do for fun? Did we do sports or study the entire time?
Well, I was in all kinds of sports. I was never very good at anything, but I dabbled in soccer and basketball and volleyball and judo, and I was active in the debate club and different social clubs at the school. I was a very active child. I just couldn't sit still. And my brothers were not dissimilar, but they tend to be more reserved, and they studied a lot harder than me. I was always out there having a good time.
Were you the social one of the group? Is that how I describe you?
Yeah, I think growing up I was more social than any of them, but now it turned out my older brother is even more social than me.
Yeah. Where are they now? Are they in the States? Where are they?
Yeah, my older brother did very well. He was the president for Asia Pacific for Aero Electronics, a very, very big electronics company. And he's now in Los Angeles. They all moved to Canada actually after school.
Oh.
And then my brother ended up in China developing that country's business for Aero. And then he kind of settled in Singapore for a while, and then he moved back to Los Angeles.
Did everyone go to the States for school? Is that sort of
Yeah,
the
they all went to the
plan?
United States, which is such a shame, right? They got
Yeah.
such a great education in the United States, but then they couldn't stay. And they ended up moving to Canada, where they got their immigrant status.
What roughly what years are we talking when they
Oh,
were here?
this is in the 70s
Yeah.
and, you know, late 70s.
Yeah, it's a problem we needed to fix for a while. But all right, so where'd you go? And how'd you get there? Where'd you go to school? I know Hawaii, but how'd you get there?
Well, at that time growing up in Hong Kong, there was no internet, right? It was all word of mouth. And I took an early interest in the hotel industry because one of the favorite things I remembered was my parents splurging and taking us to nice restaurant. And at that time, the nice restaurants were all in big hotels. And so we went to the Hilton, for example, or the Regent, the first Regent in Hong Kong. And we had nice meals, and I was always enamored with the hotel industry from a young age. And so when it was time to go to university, I wanted to study hotel management. Had never heard of Cornell or any of the other hotel schools. And, Hawaii being a tourist attraction, I just thought that they would have a good hotel school. So I ended up in Hawaii.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that how most of us sort of got started in this, like organically? I went to a hotel. It was great with my parents. It was nice. And I said, oh, let's be in the hotel business.
Yeah, it's organic, not contrived.
What was your first job? Do I know that one? What was your first job in the business?
When I got to Hawaii, I had really very little money. I paid tuition and paid rent, and I had no money left. I had to go get a job right
Yeah.
away. And the
Yeah.
only thing I could get was a dishwasher at a restaurant and at the Hilton Hawaiian Village. And so that's how I started. But the maitre d' took a liking to me, promoted me to busboy and then waiter thereafter. So I was very fortunate.
We hear this story a lot, but I love it. Like that's back to the organic nature of what we're doing. One, it's necessity, right? I'm young, I'm broke, I have no skill set. So I'm not sure. So what could I do? And you start there and you just learn, right? Don't you?
That's
How
right.
important do you think that was to who you are?
Well, at that time, there were a lot of kids from Hong Kong. Same situation. Parents wanted to have them further their education in the United States and build a better life for themselves. So there were quite a few kids, similar situation as me. So we kept one in our company and we gave one another encouragement because after all, we were in a foreign country, right? We
Yeah.
left Hong Kong and came to a place that none of us knew very well. And thank God I went to a Jesuit high school, so I knew how to speak English. So that made it a little easier. But at that time, I just remember asking myself, why not? When I was a dishwasher, I was eyeing for the busboy's position, and when I was a busboy, eyeing for the waiter's position. When I made a waiter, I was eyeing the maitre d's position. So it was just like you said, organic, right?
Where do you think that is? Do you think that's just an inherent self-confidence that you had? I mean, where do you think that comes from? Is that from mom and dad instilling it in you, or just
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a combination of factors. I certainly had the loving care of my parents, and their work ethic was instilled in me at a young age, and their unconditional love for me. And because of that, I want to try harder and make something of myself to pay them back, just to show my gratitude. So that was motivation. I went to a Jesuit high school, and the Jesuit fathers taught me the importance of intellectual curiosity. So I was always wanting to try new things. And so that was, I think, a major factor in my career development. So there's a confluence of factors.
always?
Yeah.
Always. I'm trying to think like what's the best thing? Go back in your memory. What's the best thing you think you got from your mom or dad? Best piece of advice, work ethic. I get that. But what do you think the best thing you remember?
They were also very honest people, very had high integrity, and my dad always told me, if you don't have that, how are people going to remember you, right? If you are always honest, always treat people fairly and justly, and you handle yourself with integrity, people will remember you as such, and that's what you want. It's better than money.
Yeah, and you've got that in spades. So cheers to you. Okay, so we get to Hawaii and we're our bus boy and we're moving up. And then what? Keep me going in the life of David Kong.
Well, fast forward to when I became food and beverage director for a hotel, and Dallas, which later became the Omni Hotel. I was sitting there, my general manager said, David, hey, I have good news for you. You're going to be promoted to be resident manager for our hotel in San Mateo, which is in San Francisco, right? And I said, great, I love San Francisco. I've always wanted to go to San Francisco. This is great news. And I went home. I couldn't wait to tell my wife who was working at the Hyatt Regency Dallas at that time, came home and said, David, I have good news for you. I said, what's that? I have good news for you too. She said, well, the assistant food and beverage director for the Hyatt Regency Dallas just left, and the food and beverage director is interested in talking to you. I said, oh, really? So long story short, I took 2 steps down, 30% pay cut, and went to work for the Hyatt Regency Dallas. And that began my 19-year career with Hyatt.
Oh yeah, wow. So that's how you started with Hyatt.
Yeah, for 19 years.
And stayed with them, right? Just kept moving up and up and up.
Yeah, and this is where I want to share something that's really important for everyone's career development. I took a lot of risks. And so you fast forward to, I became general manager at Hyatt. I became a general manager for another hotel at Hyatt. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to get a promotion to a bigger hotel. That's how we move up the ladder, right, at Hyatt. And I was living in general manager, enjoying the good life of a live-in general manager. So anyway, I was sitting there one day and the president of the company called. He said, David, we'd like you to come and head up the business process reengineering efforts for Hyatt. I said, what is that? He said, come and we'll figure it out together.
Yeah, we created a new position. You're going to love this. It's going to be great.
I said, I have no idea how to do that job. He said, I'm sure you do. And it's just a way for us to become more profitable for our owners because, this was back in the late 80s and Hyatt wasn't very profitable for their owners at that time. It was all about razzle dazzle. We made a great name at Hyatt for having razzle dazzle and but wasn't very profitable. So they wanted me to go in and develop business processes which could be adopted chain-wide to become more profitable. So I took a job I didn't know how to do, but I did that for 3 years. And thankfully, because of all the smart people involved, we actually ushered in the best years in Hyatt's history at that time. So I did that for 3 years, and then the senior VP of sales and marketing said, David, we really want to began to develop the database marketing capabilities at Hyatt. This is early 1990s, okay? And I've never heard of database, let alone database marketing. So I said, I don't know how to do that job, but I like that job. So I took another risk and took another job that they didn't know how to do. But I assembled a great team, very smart, talented people, and we started building data warehouses, data segmentation modeling. We started doing marketing based on analysis of the database. We even segmented all our sales accounts and deployed the sales staff accordingly. We have a way to define who is a reactivation customer, who is a growth customer, who is a retention customer, and how do we acquire the most profitable new customer? We have all those database schemes, and we're trigger-based marketing. I mean, this is in the 1990s, early 1990s.
Yeah, this is well before like the internet. It was well before STR. Like now it's all at our fingertips. We can pull up whatever.
Yeah, I know. At that time, there was no internet. Right. So I did that successfully. And then they said, well, David, we'd like you to develop the first Hyatt.com. And this was when the internet was very nascent, but everyone was beginning to pay attention to it. So again, I took a job I didn't know how to do. I developed the first Hyatt.com, and thankfully it won the USA Today Best Hotel Website that year. So I was very gratified with that. And then they got me involved with the first generation of revenue management system. And then there was a Salesforce automation system, and I got involved in all the technology work. And I had a lot of fun, and they gave me a lot of responsibilities, quality assurance, market research. I mean, a lot of different responsibilities at Hyatt. And I was very thankful for that. But then at some point, it was 19 years into Hyatt's career, and I was thinking, I'm never going to go back to becoming a general manager again. And I looked around, and it was not a job that I wanted in a corporate office. So I said, well, I had to leave. I had to leave and go and venture out and define my new career path. And a friend said, well, I think you enjoy consulting. And I've never done consulting in my life. And I talked to a few consultants. I worked with some. I've never been a consultant, but I thought, well, why not? And I interviewed with two companies, and they all asked me very good questions, but nothing about how I was going to be a consultant, but more about what I knew. And I talked about my general manager experience, operation experience, but then I talked about the business process reengineering experience, and then the system experience, electronic distribution experience, and so on and so forth. They said, we want you. Both companies said, we want you. And dangled a whole bunch of money in front of me. We want you to come work for us. Because I didn't realize I had developed a set of skill set that's very desirable at that time. And so, taking those big risks and getting the jobs I didn't know how to do gave me that rich experience that enabled me to become a consultant. So I took a job at KPMG Consulting. I didn't know how to do that job. But then, it's like everything else. You go figure it out. You figure it out. So I took an engagement at Best Western to help them with a loyalty program because with a database marketing experience, I was also involved in loyalty program. I knew all the ins and outs of the loyalty program, and I did an engagement with them. They said they loved it, and they wanted me to go back and do another engagement with them on the loyalty program. I did that, and they said, David would like you to come and help us implement all these strategies, which is a consultant's worst nightmare. Can you imagine a consultant having to go implement something they recommended? That's the worst nightmare. But
Well, you're a
anyway,
consultant. You come up with great ideas and then let somebody else implement it.
that's right. Because coming up with ideas is easy, implementing is hard, right? We all know that. But anyway, that's how I started at Best Western.
So now we're at Best Western, and then where do we go? Then what happens?
Well, I was hired as the vice president of strategic services. I was in charge of developing the database capabilities at Best Western, and I was in charge of the loyalty program. And I got involved in a lot of different areas. They wanted me, because of my past experience at Hyatt, to do market research, quality assurance, and so on and so forth. But I was basically the internal consultant.
Yeah,
And lo and behold, I had 5 promotions in 3.5 years
I believe it.
at Weston to become the president and CEO. And I have people say, you must be very lucky. I said, yeah, I was very lucky to be given those opportunities. But I credit all the experiences that I've had that eventually led me to that president and CEO position because I was unlike any of the other candidates the board considered. Nobody had the scope of responsibilities that I had. I mean, think about the operations experience, think about running things efficiently, database, the marketing, sales and marketing experience, system experience, and consulting experience, which is very important for Best Western because it's not like any other franchise company out there. So I just had the right experience that the board was looking for.
Yeah, describe. So you're there for forever, but describe Best Western. You alluded to it. Describe the difference. I know the membership program versus a traditional franchise. Describe Best Western versus the others.
Yeah, a lot of people think of Best Western as just any other franchise organization. And that would be accurate in many ways because we provide all the franchise services as the other known brands. And we like to think that we did it better than some of the other brands. But be that as it may, Best Western is also a membership organization, which meant that every hotel or every member has a voice. And when it comes to important decisions, such as changing the standards, such as implementing a major initiative, we have to ask for permission. We have to engage with all the hotels and explain the business case, and hopefully they buy in and they vote yes on those ballots, and so we can move forward. It's a very long, tedious process.
Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy being the president and CEO of Best Western?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stayed for so long, right? I was president and CEO for what, almost 18 years.
Yeah, that was impressive. We're at longest running CEO is what I remember.
Yeah.
I guess you better have enjoyed it, right? If you were there that long and you didn't enjoy it, you were
Yes,
doing
I did.
something
I
wrong.
did enjoy it very much, actually.
Yeah, and you were great at it. I'm just going to butter you up, but you were fantastic. You really were. I mean, one from the membership perspective, but even from the outsiders' perspective, great leader, great for the industry, very helpful with us, all of our interactions, the conference, and everything else that we did. You're just a gem. So I get why you were there long enough and help make Best Western what it is today. So cheers to you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so let's move on to our new gig. I guess you got to keep your challenges going, right? So you hand the baton on Best Western to the next one. What made you decide to start your DEI advisors and I don't know, become a podcast expert?
If you had asked me 50 years ago if I was going to become a podcaster, I said no way.
Yeah, me too.
But here I am, a podcaster. Well, anyway, I want to go back to a few years ago when I was on CEO panels at these big industry conferences, including yours. And, at these CEO panels, I would seemingly be the only lone token minority representation, right? Because it would be strictly white men.
Sure.
And if you look at the top hotel companies, all the CEOs are white men. And it's changing now. It's beginning to change now, but and we have come a long way from those days. But nevertheless, there remains a lot of work to be done to help women and other minority groups get ahead in this industry. And I've worked with plenty of women who are very, very capable. They work harder than most of us, and they are intelligent, they're sensitive, and they bring such wonderful qualities to the table. There's no reason why they shouldn't be CEO at Best Western or some other hotel company. And it's a matter of giving them the opportunity to do so. And I'm glad the industry is changing and recognizing that fact and actually making improvements. I studied up on what the major brands were doing after I retired because I want to make a difference in this area. I want to help women and I want to help other minority groups to move ahead. And in my study, I found that most hotel brands are doing wonderful work. They have great program recruiting diverse talent. They have development programs for them. They have employee resource groups and they give people a voice, diverse people a voice, and they set targets to promote people. And Hilton, for example, has a goal to make 50% of the general managers be female, and they're fastly approaching that target, which is great. They hold themselves accountable by publishing quarterly reports. They have board oversight committees, which is just wonderful. And in studying all that, I said to myself, I can't add any value to the great work that they're already doing. So how can I help? And it dawned on me that a lot of times when opportunities are given to an individual, the individual has to be ready for that opportunity, both in terms of technical skill set as well as the mental attitude towards the positions. And sometimes I know being an immigrant, I shortchanged myself when I was coming up the ladder because I put an artificial cap in the way that I thought about my potential because I just thought, hey, I'm never going to get that position. Look at who's holding that position now. They're never going to give it to me, right? So I shortchanged myself in a way that I thought about my potential. And I also didn't know how to ask people to be my mentor, to help me with my career. I didn't know how to find advocates. I didn't know how to network properly. Thankfully, at KPMG, I had to learn that skill. And it eventually helped me actually land a job as CEO at Best Western because I learned how to network the board. And that was crucially important. But it is crucially important for everyone who wants to get ahead, how to network. And we have these negative voices in many of us, regardless of your race or sex or anything. We have negative voices in us. That's how we're wired. And how we deal with that negative voice is really important, right? Because sometimes, even for me, coming up the ladder, having become the CEO, sometimes I felt like, I felt inadequate, especially sitting in that group of white men on the CEO panel, because I looked different, right? It didn't feel like I didn't fit in. And it stuck out like a sore thumb, and especially when I look at the picture afterwards, you know. So I felt like in some ways, I wonder if I was a fraud, I was perceived to be a fraud. And that those negative thinking is not helpful to your career. But I eventually learned how to deal with that. And, for something like that, I said to myself, well, there's a reason you're invited to that panel. There's a reason,
Yeah.
the Hunter Conference invited me to be on that panel. They must think that I'm good enough to be on there. So I must be good enough, right?
Yes, that
So
one.
why don't
You
I,
did.
so why don't I think about if I'm going to look different on a panel, why don't I say something that's different? Right. Like come up with a unique perspective that's different than anybody else's and capitalize on the way that I look. And that's how I differentiate myself, right?
Good for you.
Because it's all about differentiation. Whether it's a brand or an individual, it's all about differentiation to stand out. So there are a lot of these negative self-imposed challenges that women and other minority groups impose on ourselves that I want to help them overcome, because you can benefit from someone like Tony Capuano at Marriott talking about how he overcame challenges. You can benefit from listening to Pat Pacious or Jeff Bellotti talking about the hardships that they have to overcome. Jeff Bellotti was fired at one point, and yet look at him, one of the most admired CEOs in the industry. So there's so many valuable life lessons that we can benefit from. So I wanted to interview those people, collect their perspectives or life stories, get their advice on how to overcome some of these challenges, and share them so we can all benefit from them.
When do you think you realize that dare I say you belong? Right. I mean, obviously you're a confident person. You said that earlier. Risk taking, willing to do it, and from the outsider, of course, you belong with all these guys. You were just as smart, if not more talented than all these guys up there. So from the outsider, I'm like, oh, of course you're there. But it's fun to hear you say, because we all have it, to hear these insecurities and these negative voices saying, you don't belong. So when do you think you were finally like, yeah, I could do this?
It was not until about 5, 6 years into my being CEO when I finally realized that I should embrace my own uniqueness.
Yeah, big
But
time.
that negative voice is not necessarily a bad thing because it motivates you to try harder. So I prepare. I mean, I might only have about 10 minutes that I'm actually speaking at a CEO panel. I prepared for 2 days for those 10 minutes. I did my thorough research. I reflect on the topics that are going to be discussed and also think about general themes outside of the questions that we may get in advance. But, I really prepare and over prepare myself for those discussions. And it's a good thing, right? Because if you get that motivation, you try harder, then you're going to be more successful. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, so I agree with you. And my relating is, I mean, I like to think I'm a decent public speaker. But I get really nervous too. I mean, this just a thing. I get less and less nervous now because I've done it a lot. But I can remember being at a HOA, 3, 4, 5,000 people out there listening to you. Like, how are you going to entertain these three? What do they want to hear from me? Like, what are we talking? So my point is, all these insecurities come into all of us, right? And it's sort of how you deal with them and how you learn. To me, that's where I get my energy. I get my energy from it. So I really like it and I do it. But I can remember being incredibly nervous before doing these talks. How do we get the next generation to be like, it's okay, right? Like, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to have insecurities. It's okay to have doubts, and then have confidence and then get up there and rock it. Like you, whether it's in your job or on stage or what have you.
Yeah, no, as you alluded to, practice makes perfect. The first time you have to go up here in front of 6,000 people at Hoa, that's nerve-wracking. You probably stumbled on a few words. But now fast forward to you've done it a few times, you're so much better at it, right? So practice that makes perfect, but you have to take the first step.
I ran over my time by like a lot, and Hoa has it down to literally the minute of how
I
long
know.
you can talk. And I went way over, and I guess that was nervousness, or I just got overly excited, and they've not let me live that one down. They keep airing me every time I come back. I digress. I digress. So tell what makes this great work that you're doing. I want to go back to what you're doing now. My question for you is what makes you different from the others. But my words, if I can answer for you, you guys, I think you said it, you're more of a what I'll call a bottom up DEI. Like the corporations come from the corporate mandates down, and I agree they're doing a great job. But you're coming sort of individual up. How do we improve the individual and give them this confidence we've been discussing? But I think it's very important. I think it's very unique, and I think it's very impressive that you're coming at it from that angle. Talk more about that, if you would.
Yeah, our mission is about personal empowerment.
Yeah.
It starts with the individual. It's kind of like if you don't care, who else would care, right? You have to care first. So that's why I say I care. I care about my career. I care to empower myself to be successful. So you have to care first. So it's about personal empowerment, providing you, once you have that desire, we want to provide you with the tools and the perspective and advice on how you can capitalize on that. We are actually in the process of putting out all the themes, some of them I alluded to, and we are writing articles about it. And I'm actually talking to a few trade publications, and hopefully we can share them through the publications and, just help people broaden the way they think about things. And perhaps it's reinforcement of something they already know. Sometimes, it's kind of like reading a business book. How many new ideas do you actually get from them? Not many, but they are good reminders of things that we should be doing, right? So I'm sure a lot of things people already know. It's just that in their busy lives, they're not thinking about it. But this will serve as a timely reminder that, hey, I need to pay attention to networking. Or I might not be real comfortable with networking, but I'm going to make the effort. And because of that podcast I watched or this article I read, I'm going to make it a point to meet 10 people at the next Hunter conference. It's providing that kind of motivation or inspiration.
Yeah, it's not what you know, it's who we know, right? You got to
That's
get
right.
you got to get that networking thing and have the confidence to go do it.
Yeah.
So, all right, I want to dive into the podcast portion of this because that was not what you thought you were signing up for. But you guys as a group, and I know you have lots of different interviewers, Rachel Humphrey being one, but you guys have done, I don't know, 200 or so podcasts. I mean, how many have you done, and what have you learned?
I think it's about 220 now, almost. Yeah, we have. It's incredible. The interviews rack up an average of 2,000 views on YouTube.
That's great.
And the highest one is Pat Pages and Jeff Bellotti. They each have over 10,000 views. It's just incredible, right? To see that kind of viewership.
Do you have a favorite? I know it's a loaded question. Do you have a favorite interview?
They are so different. You talk to people like Mark Kobanesium, he's such an engaging guy, so smart. And, his message about caring resonates with me because I'm same kind of person.
Yeah.
And I talked to Tony Capuano. He's just like also off the chart smart guy. And he shared experiences from Bill Marriott or Annie Sorensen, the best advice he's gotten from them. And there are just so many wonderful, wonderful interviews. But the one that struck me the most and really connected with me emotionally was this lady. her name is Mary Lee, Li. And for those interested, you go to YouTube and look for DEI Advisors, Mary Lee, Li. She's the founder and CEO of Atlas, Atlas, and they are like a aggregator of travel information, especially airlines, and they're very big in Asia for especially low-cost airlines. And she's founded two different companies. Very accomplished lady. She broke down on a show talking about self-care because apparently she suffered a mental breakdown after COVID, and she just came across as so relatable because we all knew how hard that was, and she talked about some of her personal challenges, and she was so willing to appear vulnerable on the show to share her stories so others can benefit from her. And her message was take the time to take care of ourselves, because you only have one life. If you work all day, all night, then you suffer the consequences. And life, it needs to be more balanced than that. And she's trying to find harmony in her personal and professional life. And she talked about meditation, and she talked about taking trips. She talked about doing Pilates and all these different things. She's just such a wonderful interview. So emotional and at the same time so inspirational.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's a big thing now. It's becoming a big thing. I mean, I don't know. I'll give credit in my life, maybe Rachel Humphrey with you guys, but Rachel now is Teague self-help. You got to take care of yourself because we all run so hard. We're just doing what we're doing. We're up early. We're out late. We're burning it all. It all ends, right? Trying to balance work and family and a team and everyone you connect with and being really engaged. And we're working really hard. And we probably do not as good of a job taking care of ourselves. Oh, I'll deal with that tomorrow. Oh, I'll deal with that later.
Right.
And I agree. You just like everything, you have to make it a priority. It's easy to push off. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. You have to make time.
Another way to look at self-care is you need to be kind to yourself, right? Kindness is not a weakness.
Well
Being
said.
kind to yourself is something that we all need to do because how many of us are perfectionists? We want everything to be perfect. And if some little thing goes wrong, we fault ourselves when nobody else probably even noticed.
Yeah.
But, we're our own worst critic, and being kind to ourselves is part of that self-care. Self-care, Rachel famously said, it's about refueling our lantern so we can shine brighter for other people. And she's absolutely right. And that is such a wonderful way to put it. And Gilda also said there's a reason why they say it on the airlines that you need to put your face mask on first for oxygen before you attend to other people. Because if you don't, you can't take care of other people. And so they're all different ways to say the same message. Self-care is really important, and we need to be kind to ourselves.
What is your routine? What is the David Kahn self-help? I'm picturing you doing Pilates right now.
Can you imagine me on the reformer? I actually do that. I look back and, I was so harsh on myself, and I don't know how I made it all those years. I was management trainee, and I would finish one shift and I go volunteer to work another shift. Of course I got noticed and I got promoted because of that, but it's not good for you. When you're burning a candle on both ends, how long can you actually last? And I missed most of my children's important events because I was at work or traveling, and that I always regretted that. Now that I look back, did I really have to do that? I mean, but in that era, it's a little different, right? There was no work-life balance in the 70s or 80s or 90s, even for that matter. So anyway, I take time to think about, my work-life balance. And although I'm retired, I have more time. I pursue my own interest, like pickleball. I just like to play pickleball. But I also dedicate time to do something useful or purposeful, like DEI advisors. And I really like to help other people succeed.
David, this is great. Thank you. You were a gem of a human being, but thank you for the time. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for opening up with us. I'm very grateful that we got to do this. Wrapping up, my last question, like you've got so many accomplishments in your life. Is there any one that stands out to you that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I just got a note today. Somebody that I knew from Best Western sent me a message from LinkedIn, and basically he said he's retired, but he wanted to take some time to thank me for my leadership at Best Western and also for informally mentoring him. And he benefited a great deal from that relationship. And I think back, it's every now and then I get a message from LinkedIn or Facebook, or somebody would email me or call me even and say the same thing. And, you go through your career, you don't think about these things, but to be able to help someone with their career progression is the most gratifying thing you can do in your career. I'm really gratified that when I announced to the board that I was going to retire, I presented them with 3 internal candidates, and one of them actually became the CEO. And to be able to help 3 individuals work their way up the ladder to become a CEO material is tremendously gratifying. And, although only one of them got the job, the other 2 could have gotten the CEO job in another company, right? So to be able to help someone with their career like that, to me, is the most gratifying thing.
And it's well said, and I'm going to echo it. It's the lives we touch, right? All around us, up, down, sideways, everyone, they're impacting us as much as we're impacting them, right? All the people that impacted your life, that's probably, you were going to say that's as much makes you feel good. The lives of the people that impacted you equal to the lives you've impacted. So you're a real gem in our industry, in our world, in our lives. And on behalf of everybody, thank you for being you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure on your show.
David, you're a good friend. Thank you. Pickleball contest, you and me, challenge accepted. Let's make this happen the next time I see you.
Thank you.
David.